Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm going to show you figure that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Hello. Good afternoon to each and everyone out there. Hello. I hope you're all doing really well. We have so much to get into today. We have some returns to both the Eagles and to the Phillies. We have a little bit of happy news about the Phillies, a nice little milestone they reached. We have some hockey stuff to talk about, including the Flyers paring down their final roster, getting very, very close. What could it mean for the few bubble players that remain? We're looking mostly at forwards in that group. Oh, and by the way, Shedeur Sanders is apparently a mime. If you haven't seen that yet, you will on today's show. But we have a lot to get to, and I look forward to doing it with each and every one of you. Reminder, if you're new to this whole thing, if you are, welcome. You can find the show on YouTube, Facebook, X, and I decided for today to bring back Instagram. So if you're watching live right now on Instagram, hello, welcome. I don't know if you can comment, and if you can comment, I don't know what that's actually going to look like, but by all means, I would encourage you to try to comment on the show. We'll see if it works. It might not. I have no idea whatsoever. However, what I do know is that if you try, it might show up in the comment section down here. We already have people commenting over on YouTube, and this will start to populate. JH is the first one to get the comment in here. JH also changed the picture over on YouTube. The avatar is different. Is that a pup? That's a pup. Says Shedeur's upbringing ruined him. We'll get there in a little bit. It's October 1st. I can't believe September's already over. I don't know how this happened. I'm still trying to figure out what happened to the end of the summer, and that is gone. Those days have come and passed. The innocent can never lost. Somebody wake up Green Day. September has ended. So we are here in October. It feels weird. There's so much to get to. I saw a graphic going around today, and I meant to kind of highlight it for the show, and I got to see if I could find it again. But it is absolutely insane in the membrane to look at the October sports schedule, because the October sports schedule is rife with, obviously, Flyers games coming up. There are Eagles games. There will be Sixers games and Phillies playoffs. And if the Phillies do make a deep playoff run, what that's going to mean is a whole lot of nights where you're going to have multiple games to kind of jostle between. And it should be a lot of fun. We're all looking forward to it. I think I said this on the last show, but the idea that we got through the doldrums of summer where nothing is going on, and we have made it here to where there is always something going on with multiple teams, and some of it is actually newsworthy, and none of it is fabricated outrage. None of it is nonsensical, non-stories being turned into a story. You won't find that here. You might find it other places. Sometimes I will get animated. Sometimes we will get a little bit goofy around here. But my thoughts and my feelings and my opinions on these things will always remain consistent, and they will certainly remain authentic. The time that I start faking a take or faking an opinion or outrage on a team will be the first time. You might get yourselves worked up and worried. Is Russ losing his mind? But it's how I feel. Now, Jim Cochran is here and says, the Union, Russ. Well, why didn't I include the Union on today's rundown? I'm going to tell you why. I blame Rob Thompson. Why would I blame Rob Thompson? Because Rob Thompson met with the media. And one of the things that he said is he's looking forward to 4 parades this year. He wants a parade for the Phillies, for the Eagles, for the Sixers, and for the Flyers, which is also funny, but funny for different reasons. But he wants to do 4 parades. He fails to mention the team that is 1 win away from lifting the supporter shield, which is the Philadelphia Union, who lost Quinn Sullivan, and things are very bad there. But the Union are actually in the midst of a potentially fruitful playoff run, right? They could theoretically go into the playoffs and make a legitimate run to MLS Cup, where they will inevitably fall in the semifinal or in the final. Hopefully they don't have an Mbaizo missing his mark on Gareth Bale kind of moment at the far post that leads to a penalty shootout that the Union lose in. But we will start to kind of keep an eye on the Philadelphia Union. We have kind of reached that point in the season. So, Jim, fear not. Chris Freed checks in about something not Philly related, but we'll get to it here for a second. That Tyreek Hill injury is among the 5 worst I have ever seen in football. Is now an okay time to point out that Tyreek Hill is allegedly an absolute piece of shit human being who allegedly beat his significant other and their children is now an okay time to point that out. And then to say that, in theory, if those things are true, I don't feel a modicum of pity for Tyreek Hill. Is that okay to say? Can we say that on the show?
Russ, that's very demeaning. It's very upsetting of you to say. You shouldn't wish injury on anyone.
I don't, but I'm not going to feel bad for a guy who allegedly beat his significant other and kids. That's a line you should not cross. And he's a multimillionaire. And he seemed pretty miserable this year playing with Tua in Miami. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of it. Should we feel bad for Tyreek Hill? 610-632. I like this. JH thinks it's an impression of Ant. It is Ant. That is.
Yeah, how you doing? Anthony Sanfilippo here. How you doing?
All right, so we do have a lot to get to. I guess we could probably start with some good news, because I like good news. I don't know about you. I kind of feel like if you are here, you're looking for a little joy in your life. It just so happens that you have a little joy. That would be me. I am a small person, a vertically challenged person, but I'm here to bring you at least a little bit of hilarity, a little bit of info, and send you back on your day feeling better than you did when you got here. So let's start with some positivity. And that will let's actually go to a little bit of the positivity that doesn't have to do with any of the other stuff today. And it's just like a good little note that came out of the Philadelphia Eagles. And then we're going to get over to the Phillies and to the Flyers and to some other stuff. But let's go to the Eagles first, because they put something out that made a lot of people very excited, and especially for a team that's going to be without Nolan Smith, for a team that looked like they were taking a bunch of hits, that there were some injuries starting to crop up. It is nice that they are set to get back a player of legitimate value to their team. And that takes us to the Eagles' announcement today. Nakobe Dean. They have opened Nakobe Dean's practice window. And the reason that's important is because, if you remember, it's a 21-day ramp-up period when they take you off the PUP list. So the Philadelphia Eagles, in the next 3 weeks, right, expect to have Nakobe Dean back with the team. That is very, very exciting stuff. Nakobe Dean was a critical member of the Eagles last year. We would love to see Nakobe Dean be able to get through a full season healthy and show what he can truly do. Obviously, the linebacking core has done a great job here so far. A lot of people feeling very good, obviously, about yet another strong start to the campaign by Zach Bond. You have people, I don't know if everybody saw this yesterday, Jahad Campbell didn't find himself. Okay, we have to be very careful with how we talk about this, right? So Jahad Campbell, Eagles first round pick. Seems like a lovely guy. Jahad Campbell tweeted something yesterday. It's not a controversial thing for him to tweet. But you would think that based on the response that some people had, that they very clearly didn't understand something pretty important about Jahad Campbell. Maybe they thought it was just a coinky dink. I don't know. But Jahad Campbell tweeted, thanks to God, right? Thanks to Allah, right? And has an eagle and the green heart. And if you go through the comments section on this tweet, you would imagine that people just thought that the name Jahad was just pulled out of a hat. Oh, how! I don't want to delve too far into it. Man, the comments section, the replies to the Jahad Campbell tweet were absolutely wild. Some people of the same faith just wishing it back to him. You have some people who are throwing their religion back at him. There's a really hilarious meme that was going around about how the Eagles get wins. Go find the meme. But it is fantastic. I mean, okay. I don't know if this is technically insensitive. This is my problem. I don't know, because I don't know who this person is. I'm not showing it. I'm not. There's a really funny meme out there, but I don't know who the person in the screenshot is, and so I don't want this to be something that blows up in the worst possible way. But there is a very funny meme about how the Eagles acquired the football, and it says through Jahad, because Jahad Campbell. Okay. I don't know why people are so surprised, but whatever. So the Eagles are going to get some reinforcements on defense. They're going to bring back Nakobe Dean. It is a very positive development for an Eagles team that obviously could use some reinforcements on defense. Any team that is looking to get healthy after having to put a few guys on the injured list a week ago. This is all good. We can all feel pretty good about the fact that Nakobe Dean is coming back. And again, we obviously hope that he's going to be able to return to form and contribute to this team in a meaningful way. And listen, there is no reason that he shouldn't be able to. There is no reason whatsoever that he shouldn't be able to help this Eagles team continue this undefeated start. And we are not going to venture into bad territory today, talking about all of the latest developments in the A.J. Brown saga, because I don't really think there is a saga. I saw that there were Philadelphia radio people. Some of them were former players in Hugh Douglas and Ike Reese, both commenting on A.J. Brown. I saw some other folks on radio commenting about A.J. Brown. And I feel like the whole thing is just kind of exhausting. And I guess I'll just kind of point back to something that happened last year. If you remember, there was a point last season where the book became a conversation. A.J. Brown's book on the sideline. And then he said, well, this is just to kind of keep me grounded. It's a thing I've always done, yada, yada, yada. And some people viewed it as a distraction. And then remember there was a game last year where they said, what do you need to improve? And he said passing game. And so it was clear that he wasn't really thrilled with his role in the offense, all that. And people got themselves very worked up, and you started having the psychos who started saying, well, then it's time to trade A.J. Brown. As I mentioned on Monday, that would be an incredibly stupid, short-sighted thing to do. The, I guess, thought is going to have to be from now until the end of the season, because they're not going to trade him unless he really makes a mess of the situation. Unless he decides to go scorched earth, TO sit-ups in the driveway, which we mentioned, I think, last week, or maybe it was on Monday's show. Unless he goes that path, they're not trading A.J. Brown. It falls on Kevin Patullo to figure out a way to get A.J. Brown more involved in the offense in meaningful ways and allow arguably their most dangerous weapon to get himself into open space and be able to create big plays. Nick Sirianni has since come out and kind of said, like, look, totally get it, get where his head's at. He wants to feel like he's contributing in these wins. At the same time, it probably falls on the rest of the leadership of the team to look at A.J. Brown, say, we get it, we hear you, we see the concern, we hear the concern, we're 4-0. Let's keep this thing going in the right direction. They will. So that's all we're talking about with A.J. Brown today. That's it. Now, I mentioned returns. Nakobe Dean has a 21-day window to ramp up. There's a guy who is coming back in. There's a guy who is going to be making an immediate impact for the Philadelphia Phillies, who is returning, who is off the injured list, along with Romano. Trea Turner. So Trea Turner is back. Trea Turner is going to be back in the lineup. And the most important thing was clarified this morning on WIP's morning show. Because Rob Thompson was asked, all right, Harrison Bader's been hot. He's had some really hot moments. He's done well as a leadoff guy, but Trea Turner has historically been a leadoff hitter for the Phillies. What are you going to do, Rob? Rob goes on WIP's morning show today, and he actually did, in no uncertain terms, give you an idea of where Trea Turner is going to be batting when the Phillies take the field in the NLDS against the Reds or the Dodgers. The Dodgers. Let's go out and hear what Rob Thompson had to say, because he did not mince words. Here's Rob Thompson earlier today.
Yeah, it's a good question because Trea will lead off. Now, Bade, when
I mean, there you go. I mean, if there was any kind of uncertainty, like on one side with the Eagles, you look at A.J. Brown, you go,
Does he want to be here? Are we sure that he's happy?
here's Rob Thompson. Hey, what are you going to do at leadoff? Harrison Bader's done it. Schwartz has done it. Turner's coming back. And Thompson goes, Trea Turner's leading off. Okay, let's keep going.
Bader went through a really hot stretch. Now, the last couple of weeks, he's kind of cooled off a little bit. And Bohm's really swung the bat well. So that spot behind Harper is going to be a right-handed bat. Just not sure which one it's going to be yet.
Okay.
We're going to have some conversations in the next couple of days and see where we land. But Bohm's been really hot.
I'm going to feel really hot in the head if I have to hear that we're maybe trying to lean on Alec Bohm to deliver and get the job done in the playoffs. We'll come back to that in a second.
And it's important to have some guys down at the bottom that can get on base to turn the lineup over to get the.
You know who I'd put at the bottom of the lineup? Alec Bohm. Yeah, I would kind of plan on Alec Bohm being in the bottom third of the lineup because as soon as the lights get bright, as soon as the pressure cranks up, you know who I don't trust with the bat in their hands to drive in some combination of Schwarber, Real Muto, Harper? You know who I don't trust? Alec Bohm. We continue.
Turner and Schwarber and Harper. So, it's a good problem to have, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
Makes our lineup really deep if everybody's swinging the bat.
Oh, if everybody swings the bat, yeah. It's a good thing that the Phillies haven't had any kind of issues in recent years in the postseason with performing up to standard and performing in a way that makes you not want to rake your eyes out. Yeah, that's a good thing. So I get it. I get where Rob Thompson's head's at. I get the positivity, and I will actually continue, believe it or not, even though it sounds like I'm being negative about Alec Bohm because I just don't believe in Alec Bohm. There is good news that has come out around the Phillies, and that's the fact that tonight, Wednesday, depending on when you're listening, so Wednesday, the Phillies are doing the inter-scrimmage game, the intra-squad game. They sold out. I think they said it was 30,000 plus tickets, but the Phillies sold out every single ticket. Now, I have questions, okay? If you're the Phillies, you sold out this intra-squad game. You sold out as many seats as you were going to. Again, I think it was around 30,000, which I'm pretty sure would mean that you will have sold more tickets than like Cleveland did to their first game of the postseason, of the actual playoffs. If you're the Phillies, technically, we have said goodbye to Tom McCarthy and John Kruk with NBC Sports Philly. We've said goodbye because regular season's over, and then when you get to the playoffs, it's the national announcing crews, right? Couldn't the Phillies stream this game? Like, it stands to reason that because of some kind of nonsensical rule between Major League Baseball and teams and TV providers, that NBC Sports Philly isn't going to have the option to have this game on TV. But if you're the Phillies, like, shouldn't there be like at least a small part of you that says, you know what? Let's figure out a way to stream this game. The reason that I think it's like beyond feasible is because if you're a hockey fan, you'll know that the Flyers have been streaming their preseason games when they're not available on TV, including a few games ago where the Flyers had, it still seems crazy, they were streaming the French-Canadian feed, right? So if they can do that for preseason hockey, couldn't the Phillies on their own platforms stream the intra-squad game? Now, if there's part of you that says, well, Russ, you don't want to show anything to scouts of the other team. You don't want to, show your hand. I will question that. I mean, if your head goes there, I have lots of questions. It includes the fact that, like, what exactly are you going to show in an intra-squad game that's going to give the competitive advantage to your opponent? Your pitchers throw the same pitches. Your hitters try to hit. What else are we talking about? Defensive alignments? Can't imagine it's that. So why wouldn't you stream this if you could? Now, as of recording, there has been no plan announced to make it sound as though the Phillies are going to stream this game, but they should. Because for the 30,000 or so people that are going to go to Citizens Bank Park in this sellout, good for them. But for all of those other Phillies fans, including ones that are going to go and fork out $500+ per ticket to go see this team in the NLDS, I would make the case that this is a good faith showing by the Phillies. We are going to have this game available, even if it's not well produced, even if you don't have Tom McCarthy, John Kruk, even if you don't have Scott Fransky and Larry Anderson. What if it's Greg Murphy? What if it's just the sounds of the stadium? And, okay, you don't have the production crew to do all right, then use the cameras that are in the stadium. That would be fine. I mean, it would be kind of weird, right? It would seem a little bit strange, but can you imagine if we got to see a stream of this game filmed only by the cameras that are inside of the park, no professional production staff, right? Like, no TV truck. It's just cameras from inside the park. It's sounds of the stadium, and that's the stream. People would love it. They would eat it up. I would. Now, I didn't intend to go down this road, but I do want to point out that I do think that there's a little bit of a shame, and we could talk about this another day as well. I think that the price right now for NLDS tickets is just like absurd. And I get the fact that there's only so much that a team can do and you can't really regulate the secondary ticket market. But I was going around on a couple of secondary markets, and one of them is one that doesn't sponsor the show, and so I shan't name them. But they're the ones that I pretty much always buy tickets from now, and it's not StubHub. It's one that's pretty famous for not having additional fees. So I'm like looking at Phillies tickets, right? As of right now on this one site, the cheapest ticket you can buy for one ticket is $270 for game one, $260 for game two. And if a game, a game 5 is necessary, tickets start at $264 on the secondary market. You look at the NLCS, just based on tickets that are currently available on the secondary market, almost $500 per ticket. You get later in that series and you're looking at closer to $900. And I mean, nobody's doing this right now, but if you're looking to the World Series, tickets for the World Series right now are earmarked to be just under $1,500 a ticket. Now, I get that we live in a capitalist society. I get the idea of supply and demand. I understand it fully. And I'm not saying that people are totally wrong here for wanting to make money back on their playoff tickets. I saw a tweet going around today about how you're a scumbag of a human being if you sell a ticket that has a face value of $200 and you put it on a secondary market and you upsell it and try to sell it for like $500. So that makes you a scumbag. I don't necessarily agree. If you're somebody who buys large bulk number of tickets, right? And the Flyers previously have had issues with that in years past where they would sell them to ticket brokers and you would have like an entire section or almost an entire section of Wells Fargo Center just empty because those ticket brokers weren't able to get rid of those tickets. If you're that kind of person, well then fine. I will make the argument along with you. That's a scumbag kind of practice. But if you're somebody who has season tickets and you decide that like, look, as much as I would love to go to the playoffs, I went to 70 plus games this season, and I can make back a good chunk of money that I can then use to pay for next season's season tickets. I don't blame you. Now, if you're trying to charge like $700 for a standing room only ticket, maybe we have a conversation. But here's the thing. If these tickets sell at that price, what are you going to do? I think that the shame in all of it is, I even look at my own situation, right? 4 kids. So if I wanted to do this, now, thankfully, one of the kids is super little, probably wouldn't need a seat. But if you're going to tell me, like, if I were to take my family to game 1, and I'm not part of the lucky crew that, like, won the ticket lottery from the Phillies, in order for me to get 5 tickets, I'm actually going to pull it right now, in order for me to get 5 tickets to the game, and I'm going to toggle this to be, not best deal, I'm going to go cheapest, $285 a ticket for 5 tickets. And let me see, because remember, they say they don't do fees. It would be $1,425 for me and my wife to take our 4 kids on only 3 tickets for the kids, because one will be a lap sitter. So $1,425 for a family of 6 to buy 5 seats to the game. If I weren't so fortunate, right? If I weren't fortunate enough to have a lap sitter, it'd be $1,710 for 6 tickets. Friends, that feels pretty insane to me. It does. Now, again, I can't argue capitalism. I can't argue the fact that if somebody's willing to pay the ticket price, if they're willing to meet the price, then that's how much the ticket's worth. But that does feel a little bit gross. And I think that what you run the risk of having happen is kids who would have core memories of going to a playoff game will now miss out on that opportunity. Now, I am not trying to preach a Zoran Mamdani socialized ticket program where we say, all right, well, the city of Philadelphia is going to buy 15,000 seats at Citizens Bank Park, and we're going to sell them on a limited marketplace at below face value. We're going to sell $35 tickets, and the city's going to eat the cost. Like, no, not saying that. But I do think it's unfortunate. Like, listen, I get it. We're a little bit of an outlier as a but to take a family of 6 to a game and spend $1,700, which doesn't obviously include parking, concessions, and everything else, that just feels kind of gross. And depending on where you live, and Ford points this out, and it's very smart, then you sit on 76, or maybe you take the blue route in, And you're probably in traffic for at least 90 minutes if you're coming from my neck of the woods, maybe even longer. And then God help you when you try to get out of the parking lot, because we all know it is bad, bad, very bad. I'm looking over at the comment section right now because here you go. Chris Freed says, if you go to 70 regular season games and you skip out on playoff tickets, you need to be committed to an institution. I totally listen, I don't know how much season tickets are. I'm a dope. I didn't look this up before the show. I don't know how much season tickets are. But if you told me if I had like 4 season tickets and you told me that I could sell all of my playoff tickets for $500 plus a ticket or $300 plus a ticket, I'd probably consider recouping some of that money for my season tickets. I would have to think about it. World Series is where I cut it off. I could see trying to get your money back for a wild card round, the NLDS, even the NLCS. If you have season tickets and you get tickets to the World Series and you sell those, that's where I feel like maybe you should, not that they should force your hand to get rid of the season tickets, but if the whole idea is to try to get to a point where you make it to the World Series and you get to cheer on a championship, if you've been going for years and years and years as a season ticket holder and you take the cash grab at the very last minute and sell those World Series tickets, well, that actually does kind of make me question your fanhood. Just a little bit. Even though they would get you the most money back. JH asks, does anyone actually win the ticket lottery? I don't know anybody who won it this year. I know somebody who won tickets last year. If any of you out there did win tickets through the Phillies ticket lottery, by all means, let us know in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, X, or Instagram, and I would love to know. Let's see. Ford says, true story. I went with my wife and kids, took an hour and a half to get there for a game, 7 p.m. start. Oh, I'll point out the fact that when we do Flyers games from my neck of the woods, like when I go from my house to Flyers games for 41 games a season, plus the playoffs if they make it, which they have not to this point, I have to leave my house by 4 o'clock to try to get there comfortably by like 5:45. If I leave my house at 4:30, I run the risk of not getting to the arena until closer to 6 o'clock, and we go live at 6:30. If I don't leave my house until 5, I'm not making puck drop. That's how crazy of a variance it is from where I live. And by the way, like from where I live to the city at a non-rush hour-ish time is 45 minutes. And yet I will spend anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours one way to every Flyers game. And then typically, depending on when we leave the arena, at least an hour getting home after a game. It's insane. Insane. Jim Cochran here with an interesting thing says, I know a dude that made $32,000 in profit from selling Eagle seats during the first Super Bowl run. Sorry, but that should be illegal. You have the right to sell your tickets, I guess. It just makes me like, ultimately it kind of comes down to that question of like, if you're a fan, is it more important to get to as many games as possible or to get to the meaningful games? Like, if you look at the cost and you say, it's not worth it for me to have season tickets to the Phillies for 81 games or whatever, and then have first right of refusal to try to get a playoff ticket, right? If you decide that that's not worth it, and then you take the money that you would have spent on season tickets, or you take some wad of cash, and you say, all right, playoffs are here, now I'm going to just throw it all in that one game. There are definitely people who think that going to that one playoff game is more important and more worth their money than having access to up to 81 games at home or whatever. There are other people who feel like, no, it's part of my summer. I go to all 81 home games, and this is the most important thing for me. And I'd rather go to 81 games, miss the playoffs, and enjoy those from home, especially as it gets colder, windy, rainy, snowy in some cases. Like, I get it. But I do think it kind of comes down to like your fandom as a whole. Would you rather be somebody who goes to the regular season games and sells the playoffs, or doesn't go to the regular season and saves up for the playoffs? I probably fall more into the latter group. Now, if I lived really close to the stadium, maybe it's different. Maybe. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Amy says they now have a partial season ticket plan and get one game for each series. Now, see, that might be worth it. Maybe that's where the Russ Joy Show just sends a whole bunch of potential partial season ticket holders to the Phillies. I need a kickback. Phillies, hit me up. Let's get that one. Let's get that one going in the pipeline. Okay, thank you so much. Now, that's it for the Phillies. I think. Yes. I just double-checked my rundown. Which means that we have to get to the Philadelphia Flyers. And then we have to talk about Shedeur Sanders becoming a mime. But before we get there, we have to talk about the Philadelphia Flyers because they continue to make some cuts to their roster. We're actually going to take a gander here really quickly at players that were cut yesterday. So if you have not been keeping up with the Flyers and you're like, hey, I remember hearing the name Alex Bump as a guy who could potentially make the roster. Hey, what about Denver Barkey? That's a guy that I've heard of. I heard that Helge Grans or that Emil Andre could be on the opening night roster. Hey, whatever happened to Alexei Kolosov? We got some clarification on it. We got a little bit of an idea of what's going on over in Flyers land. I'm going to take the comments down here for a second, and we'll bring it back up in a minute. But Kevin Kurz, thank you to him for putting this out. But this was yesterday, so these were the most recent cuts as of Tuesday. Barkey assigned to the Phantoms. Alex Bump sent to the Phantoms. Emil Andre and Helge Grans are probably the two names that pop out the most. We knew that Bjarnason was going to be sent to the Phantoms. We knew Kolosov was going to go to the Phantoms. That's your goalie duo, presumably all year, until Sam Ersson hurts his groin or whatever, and then Kolosov has to go up, and then we all start to pull our hair out. So we knew that the goalies were going down. That's not a surprise. Barkey, we figured was going to go down. Bump is interesting because there was a point in time, and it goes back to rookie camp and dev camp, when there was a thought that Bump was going to have a legitimate shot to make the roster. And one of the things that was kind of built on was that Tyson Forster wasn't going to be ready for the first month or so of the season, right? Like that timeline kept shifting. And it was, is he going to miss the first half of the season? Is he going to be back by November? Will he be back by October? Will he be a participant in training camp? And as Forster's outcome and outlook started to improve, the inverse reaction was that Bump's chances of making the roster dropped. And we got to see Nikita Grabenkin start to make a legitimate push to make the roster. Now, there was a thought at rookie camp and then going into training camp that Grabenkin might have a chance, outside chance, some kind of chance to make the roster. And it feels like he has more than put himself on Rick Tockett's radar. And I would almost be surprised if Grabenkin doesn't make the opening night roster. So Bump falls off, which is disappointing if you're somebody that wanted to see Bump make it. And listen, there was a thought that, hey, if Porter Martone is going to play for the Flyers, what does that do to Bump? What does that do to Grabenkin? And this kind of matters, I guess, if you're looking at which wing these guys play. But it seemed like a month and a half ago, things were lining up for Alex Bump to make the team. He didn't. I saw somebody tweet, it was either at Kevin Kurz or at Charlie O'Connor, and they were like, what a disappointment. Another whiff by the Flyers. And it's like, this is where you start to really figure out which people are legit and which people aren't. This is where you start to figure out if somebody's totally full of shit or not. It's one of those things that kind of makes you kind of sit back and go, are you aware of where this player was taken? Are you aware that this wasn't like a first round pick? Like, did that occur to you? Because he wasn't. And yet there are people going, oh, well, it's truly disappointing. He was drafted 133rd overall. 133rd overall. It's not a disappointment. He was taken in the 2022 draft. The fact that he made it as far into camp as he did before being cut, before being sent down to the Phantoms, is actually kind of a testament to him finding success. Now, and this is where I'm going to bring the comments back because I think it's going to be important. The defenseman is where you maybe have an issue. The defenseman is where you maybe find yourself scratching your head. Because Emil Andre, if you've watched preseason, has looked like an NHL defenseman. Emil Andre's problem is something that he can't control. He's not a big defenseman. And this team already has a number of small-ish defensemen. Cam York isn't gigantic. Jamie Drysdale isn't gigantic. Sanheim's a big dude. Risto is a big dude, but Risto is not in the lineup, right? Risto's probably going to miss the first month or two of the season. So they have a bunch of small guys. They want to be bigger on the blue line. This was a point of contention last year when teams were reaching out to the Flyers about the availability of Rasmus Ristolainen throughout last season. They didn't want to move Risto if they didn't have another big body to plug in. They certainly didn't want to replace Risto's size with a small defenseman like Andre. Now, I've seen a lot of Flyers beats putting out the idea that Andre wasn't given every opportunity. He was, but within reason. And I understand that there's a thought out there. You feel the most talented team you can. And I largely agree. But when you're as small at the blue line as this team is, it is kind of hard to reconcile being that small and that skilled, right? But not having any kind of oomph. And for a Flyers team that isn't like on the precipice of competing for a cup, I don't say I agree with it, but I guess I understand why the Flyers are kind of leaning more into the almost stereotypically one-zone defenseman. We are going to have big defensive defensemen. Good luck. Now, Helge Grans is actually the one that surprised me because I thought Helge Grans had played well enough that he deserved stronger consideration. And I thought, we talked about this on Snow the Goalie the other day, but I thought that there was a chance that Helge Grans could end up making the roster to start. He's 6'3". So if Emil Andre's too small for you, Helge Grans is a bigger body dude. He's not gigantic, but he's a bigger defenseman. And if you're going to have a young guy that's going to develop at the NHL level, I thought Helge Grans had a good chance of doing it. He's not going to. He goes to the Phantoms. Now, the good news, if you want good news, is that Andre and Grans are going to play every night. They're going to play significant minutes, and they're going to have the opportunity to develop at the AHL level, which might even be better suited to them. But it is a little bit disappointing. So this takes us to all of the what remains. Who's still up? Who are the final cuts going to be? Who are the guys that we're going to ultimately have to look at and decide, will this guy make the roster? Well, it sounds like Rodrigo Abels is still in the mix. Jett Luchanko is still in the mix. Nikita Grabenkin is still in the mix. Things are about to get very interesting because there's also been the idea floated out there that you might see more defensemen ultimately make the team. So I was looking at the lineups from practice today because I'm obviously not down there. I'm doing my regular job. I'm not going to travel to the Flyers training facility, the Flyers training center to go cover freaking training camp, to go cover this preseason stuff when I have an actual big boy job. But I noticed that they still have Juleson. There's a thought that Ginning could end up being one of the final defensemen to make the team. Samula somehow is still in the mix, even though he kind of stinks. And then Gilbert's also out there as well. And so on the ice, they had 4 defensive pairings. Then they had Grabenkin with Couturier and Konechny. I think Grabenkin's going to make the team. I will plant my flag in the soil. I think that Nikita Grabenkin will ultimately make the Flyers opening night roster, and I think he's earned that opportunity. We saw Tippett with Zegras and Mishkov. Interesting. Some speed on Tippett's side of the ice. A lot of creative playmaking between Zegras and Mishkov. Goal-scoring threat, obviously, in Mishkov. Forster, Cates, and Brink. That line worked last year. It should work again this year. Then the 4th line was Delorier, Dvorak, and Hathaway. Now, if you want my honest thought, which you probably should and you probably do if you're here, I understand when people get frustrated with the idea of having veterans play over young guys. I think that at this point, especially based on the last preseason game, I've been very critical of Jett Luchanko. And I am not impressed at all with his offense in terms of his ability to score. I don't even think he's impressed with his ability to score. Because if you watched Luchanko in the last game, he was unbelievably hesitant to fire the puck at the net. I mean, you could have pointed a bazooka at Jett Luchanko's head and said, hey, shoot the puck. And he wouldn't do it. But what I did see from Luchanko is the speed that they rave about, the strength that they rave about, and the vision is there. The vision that Luchanko showed in the last preseason game was something I was really impressed by. So I'm almost willing to an extent to say, all right, I don't exactly love Luchanko's inability, unwillingness to shoot, reminiscent of Ben Simmons, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, not really, but maybe. I'm not thrilled with the fact that the guy just looks so hesitant to shoot the puck. But if every other element and every other aspect of his game and the mental and the coachability intangibles are at NHL level, then I would say it's probably better to have Jett Luchanko up here to start the season and then make a determination than it is to send him back to Guelph. Because he ain't going to get better playing junior this year. I said on Snow the Goalie the other day, the only way I would want to see Jett Luchanko go back to junior is if he's going to go down there and his entire sole focus this season is going to be goal scoring. And that next year when he comes back to camp, that he's going to be ready to go. He's going to be ready to be a fully rounded threat in the offensive zone, winning the puck back in the neutral zone, and certainly being a 200-foot player and playing solid defense when called upon. Maybe even becoming a PK threat. I would love to see that for Luchanko. If he goes back to junior, he better learn how to score goals. But if everything else is lined up, I have no problem with him making the team, which then takes us to a guy like Dvorak. Well, Dvorak was one of your free agent signings. I kind of had a question about where Dvorak was going to fit on this team. Wasn't necessarily sure that Dvorak should be on the team. Could he be blocking somebody? If Grabenkin is going to make the team like I think he will, and Luchanko is going to potentially make the team, and Dvorak is going to be on the team, then for better or worse, the guy that I think, right, the guy who's probably the odd man out is Rodrigo Abels. And I'm not sure that that's entirely fair to Rodrigo Abels because he's looked good in the preseason. And he's been able to pot some goals. And so you go, all right, if it's a meritocracy, if you're earning every bit of playing time, Rodrigo Abels doesn't deserve to be sent down. And at the same time, I'm not sure that Jett Luchanko going down to junior is going to be the best thing for his development. And that is where we hit a very uncomfortable conversation. Merit-based versus that idea of like sunken costs shouldn't factor into future expenditures. We're kind of there with Luchanko where you go, first round pick. Has he earned himself a guaranteed spot on the team? No. Do we like the alternative if he doesn't? Not really. So we're going to keep him here instead of send him to a potentially worse situation back in junior. I don't love it at all, but I'm not sure what the Flyers are supposed to do otherwise. So part of me thinks Luchanko might end up making the roster. Now, the real question here, the real awful thing would be if the Flyers decide to roll with 8 defensemen to start the season. I don't know why you would. It seems insane. I don't know who's not making the team. I mean, Zamula stinks. York, you know, is going to be on the team. Sanheim, Seeler, Drysdale. Ginning has been okay. You brought Gilbert and Juleson both in to like compete for a spot, maybe be the 7th defenseman. I think Zamula stinks. I'm not impressed. I was not impressed last year. Mishkov's English has gotten significantly better. Don't know if you need the translator on the bench anymore. I'm kind of shocked by the way that they seem to be looking at Zamula as a foregone conclusion for making the team. I feel like some of the defensive choices they're going to make are going to lead to at least one guy getting sent down to the Phantoms. It's going to make you go, ugh, disappointing. But that's where we're at with the Flyers right now. Goalie situation. Has it gotten better since the last show? Nope. And I didn't even bring this up because it's kind of annoying, but remember how everybody was like really, really excited about Oliver Bonk? Remember how everybody was like super, super stoked about seeing what Oliver Bonk had to offer this offseason and see if Oliver Bonk was going to have a legit chance to like make the team out of camp and all that lovely stuff? Yeah, it ain't happening. And it's actually, to me, it's probably more of a concern than they think it is. But the Flyers put this out. In addition, so the second part of the tweet, Oliver Bonk, upper body injury, will be out approximately 2 weeks. This was an injury that was supposed to be day-to-day, and it has somehow morphed into a 2-week injury. And to be essentially like non-contact and non-participatory, and now get to the point where here we are going down to final cuts, there was potentially an opportunity. Like if Bonk had really, really impressed through training camp and through the preseason, could Bonk have like made a case to make the team? I would have been surprised. But maybe, just maybe, he would have had an outside chance to be like one of the final cuts, maybe make the team. The lack of availability is like one of those things that starts to hamper you. And if you are a player who was drafted as highly as Bonk was, I'm not saying we're certainly not at bust territory yet. We are certainly not at this guy is going to stink and he's going to be, a waste of a pick. But this is not a great time. This is not a great time to be injured. It's not a great time to not have the organization get to take an actual look at you. So this day-to-day thing that's now turned into a 2-week injury, which is actually longer than that, is not good. Not good at all. And I wonder if this is going to become something that we're going to see a continuation. I mean, is it going to be 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks we find out he's out another week, he's out another 2 weeks? I don't know. But it's not great. So if you're a Flyers fan, the Oliver Bonk news is probably the biggest downer, I guess, of the day. But we'll see. We await the final cuts for the Flyers. I think Rabenkin's played himself into a spot, and I do think that ultimately they're going to say Luchanko makes it. Rodrigo Abels, good dude, has had a nice preseason, had some good spurts last season. He's not one of the guys that you're looking to build your team around. He's 29, which isn't a bad thing. You don't hold it against him that he's 29. However, compared to like what you want to be able to get out of and develop out of Luchanko especially, are you going to use up one of those last roster spots for Abel? I'm not sure that you are. Okay. Now, I know that I brought this up the other day, but in case you missed it, we put this out again today. But every Wednesday this season, this hockey season, every Wednesday starting October 15th, Snow the Goalie is going to be doing a live show on the radio, not at one of the Philly stations, another local station based out of Bucks County. We're going to be doing a radio show on location at Chickies and Pete's, rotating list of locations. We'll put that schedule out on the Joy Media accounts. We'll put it out on the Snow the Goalie account. I'll talk about it on the show here. So if you are a Flyers fan, good opportunity to come out. We'll do the show for about an hour. We'll be streaming it on all of our regular channels as well. But Wednesdays are going to be a lot of fun around here. And Amadeo has to, of course, throw the ultimate wrench into things and say, what happens to the Russ Joy Show on those Wednesdays? Russ Joy probably continues to do the Russ Joy Show at the normal general afternoon time frame and then leaves here and then goes and does Snow the Goalie radio. So that's probably what's going to happen. Okay, now, last thing I wanted to get to, because this is one of the weirdest things I've seen in a long time. And as somebody who follows Philadelphia sports teams, we've seen a lot of very weird things. Here's one of the weirdest freaking things I think I've ever seen. So the news came out today that Dylan Gabriel is going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders is now QB3. And so the Cleveland media tried to ask Shedeur Sanders for his thoughts on being QB3 and not being named the starting quarterback. And, for a guy that has had as many questions around, some of the choices, including allegedly kind of putting out to the Eagles and to the Ravens that he didn't want to be drafted to be a long-term backup behind somebody like a Lamar Jackson or a Jalen Hurts. For a guy that some called kind of tone deaf, rolling up with an entourage to a preseason game after falling multiple rounds in the NFL draft, for being a guy that, there were just some, I'm not going to say that there were character concerns, but there certainly are people who put out character concerns around Shedeur Sanders. He turned into a mime, not a meme. He turned into a mime, although this mime act might turn into a meme. I want you to see and try to hear, although there's nothing to hear, I want you to try to see and hear what Shedeur Sanders had to say to the local media in Cleveland to this news. All right, here we go. Now, if you're watching this, if you're listening in the podcast feed, God love you, this will make no sense to you. But if you're watching and you go, oh, I heard a man's voice here. What are you talking about, Russ? That's somebody who's in the background. That is not Shedeur Sanders. All right. So somebody asked a question. He seemed to mouth an answer and then not say anything. We're going to continue.
Vocally, anything to say?
And then she said vocally, anything to say, and he's back to lipping his answers again. He's mouthing answers. Another reporter asks a question.
I guess what do you think? You have to show, show to the coaches just to have them.
What do you have to show to coaches?
That you can, be ready.
And like, he just keeps it going. We're smiling. We're mouthing answers. And there it is again. It's just
How much has Joe been important to both you and Dylan in terms of your guys'
good question about Joe
development
Flacco.
to this point?
And so we're just doing the mouthing thing. Now, here's the one thing that we could say, right? This is tricky. So Shedeur Sanders knew that whatever he said was going to somehow be spun into him being unhappy. So on one hand, all right, let's try to give Shedeur Sanders the benefit of the doubt. We're going to try. Shedeur Sanders finds out Dylan Gabriel's QB1. Sanders is going to be QB3. We're 4 weeks into the NFL season. Sanders very clearly thinks that he should be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He gets asked about it. Now, he could do one of a few things. He could decline to talk to the media, which would have gone viral. Declining to talk to the media would have blown up, and that would have led some segments on ESPN and other talking head shows. He could talk to the media and essentially give non-answers verbally, which would have probably still made some kind of headlines. He could have talked to the media and gone scorched earth, which I'm sure people would have loved to have seen, and then that would have led the way. Or he could have taken path number 4 that no one even knew existed, which has become a mime. And here's the problem. I saw this and I went, what a freaking immature thing to do. People are just trying to do their job. They're asking for a quote. All right, you don't want to talk about Dylan Gabriel. You don't want to talk about the quarterback competition. There's a question there about how important has Joe Flacco been? Joe Flacco known pretty well as being a leader, good dude. Like, you could probably answer that one. Joe's been really helpful. Helps me keep my head on straight. Joe's been helpful and, trying to learn as much from him as I can. He's a respected vet, blah, 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 blah. Give like the kind of non-answer answer. But he even mimes that. So on one hand, if you follow this on Twitter, many people, they're like, wow, what an asshole. He's doing the whole miming thing. How disrespectful could you be? He's disrespecting the media, disrespecting his teammates, making it about himself. And then I saw the other side of things say, well, when you're angry, sometimes when you're angry, you get really quiet. Is that what he's trying to do? Is he trying to allude that he's so angry he's getting quiet? Is it Shedeur Sanders is actually better at the media training than anyone gives him credit for? And he's saying to himself, if I say anything, it is going to be leading every single segment on like First Take. It's going to lead SportsCenter. It's going to be a whole thing. I don't know. I don't think that the miming helps, though. I really don't. I think it's actually very childish and stupid. But I will give the guy the benefit of the doubt that this is certainly one way to do it. I'm not sure that it's right. Let's see. Chris Freed says, at least the Russ Joy Show did not get shut down along with the federal government today. I guess that's probably a good place to end for the day. Can I shut down the Pennsylvania Department of Education? We talked about that last week. We might have to get back to it again. Do I have further complaints against the Pennsylvania Department of Education? I might. I might very, very soon. We'll find out. I did see the $75 come out of my account, though, to put my license, my teaching license, that I haven't used in 4 years on voluntarily inactive status. Thank you, Pennsylvania Department of Education, for taking your money. Bastards. All right, we will be back on Friday with the Russ Joy Show. We should have a better idea. Final cuts for the Philadelphia Flyers. We should be able to talk about the lineup. We should be able to talk about games. Flyers games start next week. Now, don't forget, next week I'll be in Vegas. Typically, I like to say that there are going to be 3 shows and they're going to happen at a normal time and everything's going to be hunky-dory. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that is not true. You need to hold me to that. I may try to pre-record a couple episodes for next week. We will have stuff in the YouTube feed and in the podcast feed as well next week. The goal is going to be to do 3 shows. We'll see. A lot of it's going to come down to whether or not I can actually be well planned out or not. And if you know me, you know the likelihood of that happening is very, very low. But it might happen. It's like the little kid used to say in Angels in the Outfield. It could happen. It could. And it might, but it might not. But until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Do me a favor. Like the video, share the video, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And until Friday, this has been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed having all of you here. Talk to all of you Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.